Leon had no idea of KLEIO.EXE's tragic experiences, too caught up in his own reality. He still firmly assumed that she would go to the party with him and his friends later. His anticipation was evident, and he didn't want to be too distracted by her. Even though he was just getting to know her, he couldn't wait to see her again. Given his financial situation, he should have set his priorities differently. The interview, for which he was now arriving too late, would have been an opportunity for him to do something about these circumstances. That he was someone who would let such an opportunity slip at the sight of a pretty face had caused the situation for him in the first place. It was to be hoped that this faux pas would be overlooked. He checked his reflection in the glass before he stepped through the automatic door of the glass skyscraper. Across the stone floor of the entrance hall, which was nearly as reflective as the glass, he stepped up to the reception desk. Only when he reached the lady there, it occurred to him that his inner monologue here was merely about KLEIO. He therefore lacked an elaborate excuse for his lateness.
"I'm afraid Mr. Knecht doesn't have any more time for you today."
The woman spoke without taking her eyes off her computer.
"May I offer you a new appointment?"
"Oh," Leon replied, skipping the greeting as she had.
"Thank you very much. I didn't think I'd get another chance. With Mr. Knecht himself to boot."
Only now did she lift her eyes from the PC, frowning in an unnerved rolling of the eyes, at which a convinced Christian would probably have called an exorcist. She pointed her finger at her ear, which was when Leon recognized the headset and that she was talking to someone through it.
"There's an appointment available next Wednesday morning, around 9. May I write it down like this?"
She waited for the answer.
"Very well. I've made a note of it. Then I wish you a pleasant day, Mrs. Gruber."
And she ended the call.
"There, now I'm here for you. How can I help you?"
Beneath the friendly surface, distaste came through. She knew who was standing in front of her.
Sorry for talking in. Leon Rosenquist, if you remember. I should have been here half an hour ago for the interview. I had a little accident."
His shy charm missed its mark. Even backfired.
40 minutes, Mr. Rosenquist, and 5 would have been too late. "I'm sorry, but you've missed your chance. Have a good day."
Whereby, she hardly sounded as if this message was decidedly difficult for her. Immediately, her bony fingers returned to the keyboard, pupils fixed on the screen. Leon could only guess whether she was actually that busy or pretending to be. In any case, it was obvious that a loser like him was not worth her time. Dejectedly, he was about to leave when, as if by another twist of fate, the owner of the company himself entered the building. Profit and high nobility of the free market, dressed in the ceremonial garb of the capitalists. A pitch-black suit, which in its simplicity cost as much as a fat annual salary. By now he owned most of the buildings downtown, as well as the businesses within, stores and restaurants. His fingers in every pie. Billionaire and philanthropist, Balthasar Knecht. Secretly, he could be counted among the richest men in the world, while he had never been listed by Forbes and the like. Some claimed he owned it. Since his fingers were everywhere in the game, many believed that dirt stuck to it in some places that could not be washed away so easily. Given the high level of satisfaction of his employees, Leon was happy to overlook this. With his styled half-length hair, the accurately trimmed 3-day beard, the flawless tanned skin, and the suit over a body that received just as much attention, Balthasar Knecht looked like a man who spent hours every day optimizing his appearance, with time so precious and so much money that he commanded an entire retinue to deal with it in 10 minutes, except for the time he had to sacrifice to his personal trainer. But maybe the super-rich had the technology to outsource this process as well. Leon knew of his only chance. The step cost him overcoming. He took the risk of being shot, and at the very least, he risked being put through the ringer as he rushed toward him, calling out his name,
"Mr. Knecht,"
as conspicuous as necessary and as non-threatening as possible. Leon repressed the 2 gorillas in his wake, although one alone was large enough that Knecht could hide completely behind him without being seen. It was all the more miraculous that Leon got to see him at all. Suddenly, The bodyguard stepped between him and their king. As a billionaire, he was the closest thing to something like this. Everyone had to have the feeling that someone with so much money owed him something, be it just a small favor or advice. Leon was by no means a weakling, and yet he felt like a flyweight in their grip.
Leave him, boys.
Knecht spoke calmly, his voice firm. At his command, they let go of him.
I now give you 20 of your Earth seconds in which to explain yourself. Go.
He lifted back the sleeve of his suit, revealing beneath it his watch by Patek Philippe, the value of a yacht on a tanned wrist. Not to show off, but because he would wait exactly 20 beats of the big hand. Leon didn't want to waste a nanometer of distance on small talk, and yet he felt it appropriate to go into the Earth seconds, remembering that Knecht had once outed himself as a sci-fi geek and occasionally joked about being an alien.
I don't want to delay the launch of your spacecraft and get right to the point, Mr. Knecht. My name is Leon Rosenquist.
After announcing the name, Knecht suddenly lifted his gaze from his watch, obviating the need for any further explanation.
Oh, Herr Rosenquist. I remember.
Leon expressed surprise that a man of his influence even learned of his application. But it was probably a sign of his success that he was concerned with even the seemingly smallest details of his empire.
I know everyone who works for me, and I get to know everyone who wants to. I like people who disregard rules. Was your job interview today?
It was,
Leon confessed.
I had a little accident and that's why I was late. I realize it's unforgivable in a prestigious media house like yours. Nevertheless, I would like to ask you for a second chance.
He tried hard to pair his confident manner with the right amount of obsequiousness.
An accident, then?
Asked Knecht slyly, seeing straight through the lie, looking right through him, as if the person in front of him was transparent, and what was behind it visible to him. Leon feared this would be the end of their exchange.
What you lack in credentials, you have made up for in an extremely creative application. I appreciate something like that.
Knecht surprised with goodwill.
Give him a new appointment, Miss Dietrich.
Leon never thought that she would have understood him across the room, but she had slipped off her headset like her occupation, was enthralled to him with sharpened eavesdroppers.
Very well, boss.
Came back, followed by the clatter of the keyboard. Knecht turned back to Leon.
I hope you take your second chance, Mr. Rosenquist. Very few people get one here. No one gets a third.
Beneath his looseness, Knecht demonstrated dominance. Leon nodded, and Knecht returned the gesture before turning away and walking with both bodyguards towards the elevator. The goons scowled at the troublemaker. With one look, they communicated. And don't you dare make another scene like that. That was the PG-free version of what they were expressing. While Leon and a less than enthusiastic Mrs. Dietrich made the new appointment, the elevator ascended with 3 occupants to the highest floor of the Knecht Media complex, to an area that could be accessed only with a fingerprint and an eye scan. The silver gate opened, and Balthasar Knecht came with his shadows into the most luxurious attic in the northern hemisphere. An assortment of precious antiques and works of art adorned the otherwise understated, modern space. In addition to the excess space, this small but significant portion of his collection revealed the forms of aesthetics Knecht liked to surround himself with. Statues, busts, relics of a pagan nature on pedestals, the sort of art for which one would have been burned at the stake a good 200 years ago. They depicted gods and other creatures of long-gone cultures. In front of a life-size marble image of the god Mithras, who slit the throat of a bull, stood an ebony desk. It was empty. Only a black cube of iron lay on it. At a desk, as it could only fit into a room like this without completely filling it, one inevitably asked oneself how it was transported here in one piece without a crane. Even more than with the statue of Mithras. The most significant component of the room, however, was a circular relief carved into the dark floor in front of the table. It was made of white onyx stone, measured exactly 12 feet and depicted a snake. On it was inscribed, with charcoal pencils, a combination of numbers and Greek and Coptic letters, It did not take a strong understanding of occult practices to attach a ritual significance to it. For Joseph Conrad, there was no question about it. The brown-blonde short haircut and his cold eyes, together with the tight posture, made him look like a militarist. As Knecht's new bodyguard, he brought a vague understanding of the matter. He surveyed the circle with a serious expression. Residues of wax revealed that a ritual had recently taken place. The pagan symbolism must have seemed a bit strange to him, as he had served for years in the Pope's Swiss Guard and then in the Vatican Secret Service. However, Knecht knew how little he cared as long as the pay was right.
Ouroboros,
explained the second bodyguard, with English pronunciation, so that it sounded like a swallowed Ouroboros. Gabriele Battista was a former member of the Italian-American Genovese. A dark guy, dapper and slick. The certainty around his good looks as intrusive as his aftershave. Conrad didn't like him. They differed like two sides of the same coin, which was probably intended. Although Conrad was fluent in several languages, he never got rid of the broad Swiss accent.
May I ask why exactly we are here?
He asked his new boss cautiously, ignoring Battista. Knecht stood against the far wall to the side of the wide picture window. Next to him, the view of downtown Berlin. In front of him were two man-high mirrors, one ordinary, while the black one next to it was made of obsidian. Strange symbols of gold were embossed in its frame. Just then, Knecht looked at his reflection in the ordinary mirror, hardly seeming thrilled by what he recognized in it.
3 sessions with private trainers a week, and still this suit makes me look fat.
You look excellent, boss, Battista cajoled, which earned him a sidelong glance on Conrad's part.
There's no denying it,
Knecht decided.
With a Keton for 100K, one should expect better.
It almost sounded as if he was trying to get rid of the suit, which could be forgiven. With a warehouse of pieces, significantly more flattering to his compact posture.
Anyway, we're here to brief you, Sepp.
He let the name roll off his tongue, turned away from the mirror, and glanced into the one made of obsidian as he passed. There, he recognized something that remained hidden in the normal, and that eluded the perception of his bodyguards. They might have felt the temperature in the room drop a little. Back at the relief in front of his desk, he took the iron cube in his hands and explored it with his fingers, the sharp edges and smooth surfaces. While leaning against the piece of furniture, he turned the cube like one of Rubik's. For ordinary mortals, this one was an unsolvable puzzle.
As my new bodyguard, it's important to me that you learn a little more about me than the average citizen. Otherwise, we'll have to put you in the loony bin after this.
The joke made the seriousness behind it comprehensible.
Surely, you've picked up a few things during your time in the Vatican. Things about so-called miracles or the work of the devil. That seducer, Lucifer, that little Beelzebub.
Knecht gave a sinister laugh. Conrad listened, unsure whether he was listening to an atheist with a passion for the morbid or a devil worshipper.
It is the scapegoat with whom they disguise the paradoxical nature of their god. And the lambs have since been suckling at the teat of their false dualism.
Then what is it that you believe in, Knecht?
Wanted Conrad to know, sounding a little affronted.
As I see it, I am faced here with a circle similar to the ones found in European grimoires.
Knecht pointed his index finger at him, wiggling it up and down. A broad grin stretched across his visage.
And that's precisely why we hired you. In addition to your other qualities, you already bring some prior knowledge. Excellent. Granted, not everything in these books is bullshit. Even if most of it unfolds its maximum potential only for the practitioner who wrote it down.
Conrad recognized a sparkle in his eyes. A fire. The flame reflected a diabolical euphoria.
It is the living thread with which we maintain the contacts beyond us. It makes transmissions such as these possible in the first place.
As if the devil himself took possession of him, he escalated into his monologue, punctuating the phrases with wild gestures.
Compare it with applied quantum physics. Anyone who is familiar with the matter and does not succumb to his own arrogance will admit that they have essentially no idea what they are dealing with. And nevertheless, they succeed in miracles of which they preach. Some of the mystical currents of our ancestors were much closer to the core of truth than the rationalists. Because the truth can be understood as a human being only irrationally, and even then, only rudimentarily. Is it not ironic that of all people, the humanists of the Enlightenment and so-called sciences of modernity, which are ostensibly in the service of humanity, led us into a dark age of the spirit? Centuries of false dogmas, enemy images, wars and inquisitions on top, and the truth was lost in a swamp of lies. Oh, we have bought their silence with the blood of those who have rotted in dungeons, drowned in rivers, screamed in torture chambers, or those who burned at the stake.
He paused dramatically, savoring Conrad's skepticism.
The likes of me never die. The likes of me preserve the kernel of truth and survive the persecutions that we ourselves caused. We consort with the gods, angels, demons, spirits, elves, fairies, jinn, aliens if you will, or fucking Bigfoot. Everything that's sold as supernatural these days is from the same source, what wasn't cooked up by some nutcase for attention or a cash grab. That comes from them. And often it becomes more complicated to distinguish what comes from whom, Sep. I'm talking about contact between humans and the beings of higher and lower dimensions.
He offered Conrad a little glimpse behind the curtain, the superficial stage on which he performed his play. Beneath the mask of the billionaire philanthropist was a sworn occultist of the old school who kept his practices hidden, a secret school of unbroken transmission. Few were privy to how deeply he wallowed in the muck of humanity, and those who abused this trust paid the highest price. The same was true of the bodyguard Conrad now replaced, which was certainly omitted from the interview.
I deal with beings that exist outside our boundaries of space and time, outside our conception of good and evil, truth and lies, the possible and the impossible. Therefore, the utmost caution and the highest degree of suspicion are required when one consorts with them. But for those who know what goods they desire, they are the most profitable of all business partners. For those who know how to subjugate them, they are the most useful of servants. Not that I don't appreciate your contribution, gentlemen, but you cannot compete with their skills.
His bodyguards forgave him, as it was beyond their imagination.
And what is it that such creatures desire?
Asked Conrad. Batista snorted in amusement, which his new partner at first thought was arrogance. It came from the fact that he had once asked the same question. He knew the answer.
Wouldn't you like to know?
Replied Knecht with a smile, enjoying the ignorance of his subordinates.
You have it. So have Batista or I. Any unsuspecting sheep out there.
He walked to the window and looked down on the town where the sheep were struggling ignorantly in the stockyard of their existence, seemingly doing it of their own free will. Born to die, Knecht waited for Conrad's guess.
So?
Spoken like a devout Christian. Sep. Oh dear Sep.
If not for the scorn, it would have sounded pitiful.
But that's right. You're not that far off from a bullseye with that. As long as you acknowledge that pretty much everything in the material world has some kind of soul. It exists in oodles, Sep, different manifestations, and is more potent in places like these, where borders to other worlds blur. Most likely where many once suffered the strong emotion of loss, separation, and pain. On top of all the psychogeographical stuff, there is the position in the Earth's magnetic field, to constellations and planets. But we don't want to get too new agey on your first day.
The flames in his eyes were fueled by things they had seen. Some form of madness had to be carried away. He gave Sepp Conrad the feeling that a deeply diluted form of spirituality had been instilled in him throughout his life. He showed himself unperturbed by this, although a Christian concern did not let him go.
You are putting your immortal soul at risk so that these creatures will help you in worldly matters?
I've always wanted a priest of my own.
Knecht spoke with amusement.
And you are close enough, Sep, to a priest. As with your assumption, I proudly profess to be a hedonist, and I give myself over entirely to materialistic pleasures, because I know what else is going on. I enjoy every time I am here. I haven't needed wealth for a long time. I have enough for all the rest of my lives. No. They rarely do these things for me anymore. It's about continuance and power.
He rolled back the sleeve of his suit and looked at his watch.
At this very moment, 3 exceedingly wicked representatives of my servants are raiding one of my banks. Take what they need, bring me what is due to me. In doing so, they are about to dispose of a thorn that has plagued me for a long time, and that I would like to have removed from everywhere. It is the only thing these beings are good for, to cause chaos, because it is where they originated from. I call them shapeshifters. All the names they have for themselves are made up, so I might as well pick one. They themselves forgot what they really looked like eons ago, and their instability runs through everything they are. They are chaos, which one put in order. Radioactive, irrational, and completely mentally unstable, because they know that every conceivable possibility exists in another reality.
Conrad felt queasy at the idea of facing such creatures.
Unfortunately, it also means that they all too often misunderstand or deliberately disobey. However, when it comes to doing what is in their nature, they are created assistants. For with all their mess, they understand the principles of reward and punishment.
He welcomed the chaos they brought, knew its benefits. Chaos recreated order. The change was good for business. For as long as his place in the hierarchy continued, he welcomed the consequences.